King Fahd International Airport, DMM, Saudi Arabia. Let's start with scale. That sounds like a typo. King Fahd International occupies roughly 776 square kilometers of land, an area so vast it's about 5.7 times number 2 on this list, Denver International. And it's over 60 times Heathrow and roughly 13 Manhattans. It's even just shy of Bahrain's total land area. Opened in 1999, the main passenger complex was designed for 12 to 16 million passengers, and this is around the level 25 years later. But the real story is how the site functions as a self-contained air city. Dual parallel 4,000-meter runways with wide separation for simultaneous movements, high-speed exits to keep wide bodies rolling, and taxi loops that minimize hold-time fuel burn. In the desert, physics sets the rules. Thin, hot air stretches takeoff rolls, so pavements run long, bearing strengths are high, and expansion joints are everywhere to absorb brutal thermal cycles. Corrosion gets a climate discount, but sand is the enemy. Everything from approach lighting to engines live with filtration, blast fencing, and constant FOD sweeps. Inside, the terminal is horizontal power, big spans, clear sight lines, and prayer spaces that anchor passenger flow. Strategically, DMM is a pressure valve for the Gulf, staging for freight, pilgrimage surge capacity, and a commuter tether to Bahrain via the causeway. The true feeling on the ground is scale without edges. You can drive for minutes and still feel like you haven't reached the airport, because here, the airfield is the landscape. Denver International Airport, DEN, USA. Denver is the airport that swallowed a prairie. The site spreads to roughly 136 square kilometers, making it bigger than San Francisco and more than twice Manhattan, roomy enough to stage a small air force and still have land in reserve. Altitude and weather define everything here. At about 1,650 meters above sea level, the air is thin, so runways go long. DEN's 16R/34L stretches to 16,000 feet, the longest commercial runway in North America, giving heavy wide bodies the takeoff roll they need on hot, high days. Opened in 1995, it has 6 runways set in widely separated banks that allow simultaneous streams of arrivals and departures to flow, even when wind swing or snow squalls pop up. The terminal hides its annual footfall of around 78 million passengers under that white peaked roof, a tensile membrane that nods to the Rockies, and feeds 3 midfield concourses by automated people mover, keeping walking distances sane inside a footprint that's anything but. Winter doesn't just mean de-icing. It means a choreographed ballet of sweepers, brooms, and blowers that clear kilometers of concrete fast enough to keep the hubs turning. Out on the grasslands, wildlife fencing, drainage swales, and radar keep birds away from the traffic lanes. Strategically, DEN is a continental hinge. Coast-to-coast legs, mountain gateways, and high-elevation test flights all converge on a field so big you could land, taxi for 10 minutes, and still feel like you're in open country. Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, DFW, USA. Think of a whole city whose streets are runways. DFW spreads over approximately 70 square kilometers, bigger than Manhattan and about 5.5 times Heathrow, with space to stage 7 runways and 5 passenger terminals without tripping over itself. The plan is classic midfield. Terminals A through E form islands between parallel north-south runways, so aircraft push back, taxi a short hop, and launch. Arrivals peel off to gates without crossing active traffic. The long north-south pairs handle the prevailing winds, while the crosswind set keeps the schedule honest when Texas weather flips the script. Lengths run into the 13,000-foot range, giving heavy wide bodies margin on blistering summer days. Inside the fence, Skylink loops airside at metro speeds, stitching every gate to every gate in minutes. Crucial for a megahub where banks of connections rise and fall like tides. Thunderstorms and microbursts are the real bosses here. DFW counters with layered radar, ground stop choreography, and miles of high-speed exits to clear the arrival rush when the sky reopens. On the ground, dual freeway spines, vast parking fields, and cargo aprons turn an airport into a logistics machine, with American Airlines hub as the beating heart. The scale shows up in small ways. You can land, taxi for 10 minutes, and still be inside one neighborhood of the airport. A reminder that DFW isn't next to Dallas-Fort Worth. It's part of it. Ranked 3rd busiest in the world according to ACI, this airport is putting its scale to good use. Beijing Daxing International Airport, PKX, China. Beijing built a Starfish and taught it to fly. Daxing's single terminal, opened in 2019, spreads to roughly 700,000 square meters under one roof. This is bigger than the Pentagon, and about twice Heathrow Terminal 5. with 5 radial piers that pull gates close to the center, so walks stay short, even when the numbers go big. The airfield opened with 4 long runways, each around 3.6 to 3.8 kilometers, set like compass points to keep operations flexible in Beijing's shifting winds, with expansion stubs planned for more. The geometry is the point. Aircraft push back, pivot, and are on a high-speed taxi line in seconds. Arrivals peel off and duck into a pier without crossing active traffic. Inside, the terminal is a vertical machine. Check-in and departures on top, arrivals beneath, rail and metro below that. So you can step off a long haul and be on a high-speed train without ever going outside. Capacity targets are headline stuff. 72 million passengers in the midterm. Engineered headroom toward 100 million as runways and piers grow. The giant skylights aren't just for show. Daylight slashes lighting loads while geothermal fields and solar arrays take a bite out of cooling and heating demand. For scale, the terminal covers roughly 100 football pitches, yet the layout keeps the farthest gate within about an 8-minute walk from the center. And speed carries into the city. The dedicated express line makes the airport to downtown jump in around 19 minutes, turning a megahub into a near commute. It's the rare airport that feels close-packed from the curb and impossibly vast from the air. Washington Dulles International Airport, IAD, USA. Dulles was designed to feel modern forever, and somehow it still does. Conceived in the late 1950s and opened in 1962, it arrived as the purest expression of jet age planning. A vast greenfield site, a grand head house by Eero Saarinen finished posthumously, and an airfield laid out for long-range jets not yet common. The campus spans roughly 13,000 acres, a land reserve big enough for 4 long runways and a midfield city of concourses while keeping noise and approach paths clear of dense suburbs. The original terminal's swept concrete roof reads like a wing in tension, fronted by a broad, uncluttered forecourt that still makes arriving feel ceremonial. Operationally, IAD is built for long-haul rhythm. 2 11,500-foot north-south runways handle the heaviest departures in summer heat. The 10,500-foot east-west runway and a shorter parallel add flexibility when winds shift. The midfield concept, concourses set away from the head house, was radical in '62 and still pays off. Arrivals peel off the runway straight into gate neighborhoods without crossing departure streams. The famous mobile lounges launched with the airport. Today, the underground Aero train, opened 2010, moves international banks under the ramp. For scale, the airfield is nearly the area of Central Park times 6, yet from curb to gate, the path is compressed into clean lines and quick decisions. Dulles feels like distance engineered into speed. Orlando International Airport, MCO, USA. Orlando grew an Air Force base into a resort capital megahub. The code gives it away, MCO for McCoy Air Force Base, with commercial operations consolidating here in the early 1980s and a campus that now spans about 12,600 acres, roughly 51 square kilometers. That's around 4 times Heathrow and nearly a full Manhattan in land area. 4 long parallel runways, 2 pairs labeled 17/35 and 18/36, topping out near 12,000 feet, let arrivals and departures flow side by side even when Florida's summer thunderstorms start sketching anvil clouds over the marsh. The terminal plan is pure Florida, a central landside building feeding out to satellite airsides by automated people movers, so walking stays short and gate neighborhoods feel calm even at holiday peaks. The new Terminal C opened in 2022, adding a high-ceilinged head house, international processing built for wide-body waves, and a direct link to the intermodal station where Brightline trains now tie the airport to South Florida, making a theme park trip feel like a single connected journey. Under the landscaping, the airport is basically a water machine. Canals, ponds, and pumps manage wetlands, storm bursts, and bird life so jet paths stay clear. And yes, lightning rules the clock here. Ramp closures are scripted, then the recovery is a sprint of pushbacks and high-speed runway exits. Scale shows up in quiet ways. You can ride a people mover for minutes and still be inside one terminal complex, a reminder that at MCO, the airport isn't beside Orlando. The airport is one of Orlando's front doors. Paris Charles de Gaulle, CDG, France. Paris built a jet-age city at the edge of Île-de-France. Opened in 1974 and shaped by architect Paul Andreau, CDG spreads over approximately 32 square kilometers, about half of Manhattan and more than twice Heathrow, with 4 parallel runways split north and south, so arrivals and departures can flow without crossing. One pair stretches to just over 4 kilometers for heavy long hauls. The secondary pair handles the medium-length workhorse flights that keep Europe's schedules ticking. Terminal 1 is the icon. a concrete ring with satellite piers that feed wide bodies like spokes on a wheel, updated inside but still unmistakably sci-fi. Terminal 2 is the machine. Linear concourses A through G, each a neighborhood for different carriers and aircraft sizes, stitched together by the CDG-VAL People Mover, airside shuttles, and a landside boulevard of check-in halls. Below it all sits the big advantage, RERB into Paris, and a full TGV station under Terminal 2, turning the airport into a national rail junction where you can step off a 777 and be in Lille, Lyon, or Strasbourg without touching a taxi rank. Winters bring fog and de-ice waves. Nights bring strict noise procedures and runway alternation to spare suburbs. The scale hides in the timing. You can ride a train for 5 minutes and never leave the airport, then emerge beside another terminal that feels like a separate city, because at CDG it is. Istanbul Airport, IST, Turkey. A brand new mega airport carved out of the Black Sea Hills. Istanbul opened in 2018 and scaled like it means to be a global default. The site spans roughly 76 square kilometers, bigger than Manhattan, and on par with the world's largest airfields, built around a terminal of about 1.4 million square meters under one roof. Capacity launched at 90 million passengers with a master plan that phases toward 200 million. And the airfield geometry is pure throughput. Multiple, long, parallel runways with wide spacing for independent arrivals, high-speed exits that empty touchdown zones in seconds, and midfield taxi spines that keep pushbacks short for narrow bodies and heavies alike. Istanbul's weather throws the playbook at it. Bosphorus fog, sea winds, winter icing. So the pavements run long, lighting and CAT systems are robust, and de-icing pads sit off-gate to keep banks on time. Inside, the terminal works like a city concourse, vast departure halls feeding pier gates in disciplined lines with intuitive wayfinding under vaulted ceilings, so the scale reads as clarity rather than chaos. On the ground, the M11 metro drops you into the terminal from central Istanbul, while the old Ataturk field shifted to cargo and business aviation, leaving long-haul passenger waves to concentrate here. For scale in the mind's eye, you can taxi for 8 minutes at normal speed and still be inside one runway complex. A reminder that IST isn't just the new Istanbul Airport. It's the hinge between Europe, the Middle East, and Asia built at continental size. Bangkok Suvarnabhumi Airport, BKK, Thailand. Built on what locals once called Cobra Swamp, Suvarnabhumi turned wetland into a megahub. Opened in 2006, the campus covers approximately 32 square kilometers. That's about 9.5 Central Parks and nearly 3 times Heathrow, with 2 long parallel runways at 4,000 meters and 3,700 meters that keep wide bodies moving through Thailand's monsoon winds. The terminal reads like a steel and glass basilica. Vast barrel vaults, deep overhangs to shade the tropics, and huge clear spans that let security, immigration, and retail sit in clean, intuitive lines. Capacity started around 45 million passengers a year and has since been pushed far higher with a major satellite concourse adding dozens of contact gates, including A380-capable bays, so the airport can bank international departures without gridlock at the curb. Under the surface, the engineering is all water. Drainage canals, retention ponds, and pumped stations tame downpours while keeping birds off approach paths. Hot and heavy air lengthens takeoff rolls, so high-speed exits and generous runway shoulders help clear the touchdown zones fast after a squall. For scale, you can feel, the control tower rises approximately 132 meters, among the tallest anywhere, looking over an airfield large enough to hide entire neighborhoods in its infield. Suvarnabhumi is the classic Southeast Asian gateway, a single monumental roof that swallows holiday waves and long-haul banks, then feeds them out to Thailand's islands and the wider region with surprising speed.